One story, one feeling. Emma doesn't just tell it, she makes you live it. Let's begin.
My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years. We met through a game. Back then, I was a broke college student who had just finished a soul-crushing semester. While everyone else went home for summer break, I had to stay behind and work. Too stressed to sleep one night, I found a mobile game to pass the time, an RPG with combat, guilds, and most importantly, a chat room. And that's where I met Jake. At the time, I didn't think much of it. He was the top player in our guild, smart, quiet, and super OP. I was just a low-level newbie who barely knew how to fight monsters. But for some reason, he noticed me. Maybe it was because I was always online at 3 a.m. Maybe it was because I always type with proper grammar and punctuation, even in game chat. Or maybe it was just fate. One night, after I accidentally let a boss right into his farming spot and nearly got us both killed, he messaged me. "Jake, you always play this late?" "Me, yeah. Insomnia." "You too?" "Jake, yeah." "Jake, want to farm together?" And that's how it started. From then on, we played together almost every night. He'd help me clear quests. I'd make him laugh with terrible puns. We'd voice chat sometimes, though I never dared to turn on my camera. He said he didn't mind. He said he liked just talking to me. Eventually, he added me on Discord. Then came daily messages. Then good morning texts. Then late night calls. 3 months later, we were a couple. At least online. I knew how ridiculous it sounded. My friends thought I was crazy. Girl, what if he's a 40-year-old man with 3 kids? I laughed it off. I'm not that dumb. But part of me always wondered. For over a year, we never met in person. He always said he was busy with work. Sometimes he'd disappear for days with no warning. Other times he'd be online all night with me like nothing else mattered. I never asked for much. I didn't want to push. But some nights, the doubt crept in. Then came our second year. I had graduated. He sent me flowers. Real ones. A courier showed up at my door with a bouquet of white roses and a tiny card that read, "You did it. I'm proud of you. Jay." I cried for 20 minutes. That was the moment I realized I really loved him. Not the voice on the phone. Not the profile picture. Him. But still, we hadn't met. Not until our 3rd year. It was a random Tuesday. I was working late at the bookstore cafe where I just started part-time. Rain poured down outside. My shift was ending. And I was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door rang. I didn't look up at first. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, do you sell any books on how to surprise your girlfriend?" I froze. Then I looked up. And there he was. He was taller than I imagined. Wearing a gray hoodie, rain clinging to his sleeves. Messy dark hair. Sharp jawline. Warm eyes. And that voice. The same voice I had fallen asleep to so many times. I stood frozen behind the counter. He smiled. "You're not going to say hi?" My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then I whispered, "Jake?" He nodded. "Hi, Katie." And just like that, my world cracked open. I ran around the counter and hugged him so hard, I nearly knocked us both over. He laughed into my shoulder. "You're tiny. You're late," I mumbled. "I know. You said you'd come when the time was right." He pulled back just enough to look at me. And it is. We walked through the rain with one umbrella. He carried my tote bag. I clutched his arm like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. "So," I said after a while, "how long have you been planning this?" 3 months. "You're kidding." "Nope." He grinned. "Booked the flight, got the flowers, asked your coworker when your shift ended." I stared at him. "Wait, how did you even know where I work?" He smirked. "I have my ways. Jake." Okay. You mentioned the bookstore in a call last month. I just paid attention." I blushed. We stopped at a red light. He looked at me under the umbrella. I was terrified, he admitted. Of what? That maybe you wouldn't like me in person. That maybe this. He gestured between us. Only worked online. I looked at him. You're an idiot. He blinked. I reached up and kissed him. The light turned green. Cars passed. Someone on a bike whistled. But I didn't care. When we finally pulled apart, I said, "Don't you dare disappear for 3 days ever again." He smiled, not planning on it. That night, we sat on my tiny couch. Legs tangled under a shared blanket. He scrolled through my phone gallery. "Wow, you really take a lot of cat photos." "They're good cats," I defended. He pointed at one picture. "Is this one wearing a sweater? Her name is Peaches. She gets cold easily." Jake burst out laughing. I smacked his arm with a pillow. "Shut up. You talk to your plants. They're great listeners." We kept laughing until we couldn't breathe. It felt natural, like we'd done this 100 times. Only we hadn't. And yet it felt like we had. Later, he fell asleep with his head on my lap. His breathing soft. His fingers curled gently around mine. I watched him brushing hair from his eyes. This was real. No screen. No buffering. No typing bubbles. Just him. The next morning, he made pancakes. They were slightly burnt and the syrup was cold. But I ate every bite. Because he had tried. Because he was here. Because after 3 years of maybe someday, we had finally found our now. Jake stayed for a week. 7 days of coffee runs, grocery trips, midnight walks, and movie marathons. 7 days of learning his little habits. How he always tapped twice before closing a cabinet. How he hummed when washing dishes. How he refused to sleep without a blanket over his feet. 7 days of falling deeper and realizing I already had. On his last night, we sat on the floor of my living room, playing cards. "You know, I said I used to wonder if you were real." He looked up. "You didn't think I was?" I shuffled the cards slowly. "I think I hoped you were. But after a while, I stopped expecting it. Just kind of accepted that you lived inside a screen." He reached over, took my hand. "I'm real," he said softly. "And I'm here." I looked at him. "You're flying back tomorrow." His jaw tightened. "I know." I waited, but he didn't say more. So I asked, "Will I see you again?" He squeezed my hand. "Do you want to?" I blinked, then laughed because, "Is that even a question?" He smiled. "Then yes." At the airport, I cried. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears as I hugged him one last time and whispered, "Don't be a stranger." He kissed my forehead. "Don't forget me, Katie." I couldn't if I tried. He pulled back, hesitated, then handed me a small envelope. "Open this after I board." Then he was gone. I watched his plane take off. Then I sat on a bench, opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten note. It said, "This isn't goodbye. It's just the end of one level and the start of the next. I'll see you soon. Love, Jake." Taped to the back was a round sticker, our old guild emblem from the game. I laughed through my tears. Of course he'd do something nerdy like that. And of course I loved it. The weeks after he left were hard. Harder than I expected. Because now I knew what his laugh sounded like. What his hand felt like in mine. What it was like to fall asleep beside him and wake up to the curve of his smile. Calls weren't enough anymore. Texts felt hollow. I missed him in the space between seconds. In the pause between songs. In the way my bed felt too big, too quiet. One night I sent him a message. "Me, I miss you. So much it hurts." He replied, "Jake, I miss you too." "Jake, but I have good news." I sat up. "Me? What kind of good news?" "Jake, the kind where I get a new job." "Jake, and it happens to be in your city." My heart stopped. "Me? You're moving here." "Jake, 2 weeks from today." I burst into tears. Then I called him. Then I screamed into my pillow while he laughed on the other end of the line. 2 weeks later, he knocked on my door with 2 suitcases and a plant named Bruce. "Don't ask," he said. "I won't," I said. We laughed. Then I kissed him so hard we almost dropped Bruce. Jake moved into a studio across the street from mine. We didn't live together yet, but we practically did. He cooked. I cleaned. I did the laundry. He fixed the Wi-Fi. We fought over the thermostat. Shared groceries. Shared weekends. Shared silence. Sometimes, we didn't even talk, just sat next to each other on the floor, each doing our own thing. But it was the kind of silence that felt full. Like music on mute. Like knowing someone's heartbeat without having to hear it. We had bad days too. I got grumpy during finals. He forgot our 6-month in-person anniversary. I cried when I shouldn't have. He shut down when he should have spoken up. But we always circled back. To laughter. To listening. To each other. One night we were making dinner. I was chopping onions. He was stirring something that smelled suspiciously overcooked. He looked up. "Do you ever wonder if this is it?" I blinked. "You mean life?" "No, I mean us. Like, maybe this was supposed to be a one-time story. A random online friendship. A summer thing." I put down my knife. "Do you want it to be?" He set the spatula aside. Came over. Wrapped his arms around me from behind. "No," he said softly. "I want this to be everything." I turned in his arms. "It already is," I said. And that was the first time we said it out loud. "I love you." No dramatic background music. No rain. No sunset. Just a warm kitchen. Half-chopped vegetables. And 2 people who somehow made it across time, distance, and doubt. 6 months later, he moved in for real. We got a bigger apartment. Adopted a cat. Yes, Peaches. He got a job in tech. I started grad school. Life wasn't a fairy tale, but it was ours. We still played the game sometimes. Same guild. Same usernames. Except now I'd hear his voice not through headphones, but from the other side of the room. One night, I caught him staring at me during a raid. "What?" I asked. Distracted by a boss fight. He smiled. "Nothing. Just thinking about how lucky I am that you let a boss straight into me 3 years ago." I laughed so hard I died in game. And he spent the next 10 minutes reviving me while I reminded him whose fault it really was. And that's how I met the love of my life. Not at a party. Not through mutual friends. Not in a bookstore or coffee shop or rainy street. But in a game. At 3 a.m. While avoiding sleep and responsibility. Sometimes the universe has a funny way of bringing people together. Not always loud. Not always perfect. But just right. Living with Jake felt like learning a new language. There were rhythms, silent ones, soft ones. Little signals that meant, let's talk. Or let's just sit in this moment. He'd hand me coffee without a word on hard mornings. I'd leave sticky notes on his laptop when he was too deep into coding to eat. Sometimes we stayed up late, talking about the stupidest things, like whether time travel would ruin birthdays, or if cats understood sarcasm. Sometimes we just lay on the couch in silence, our hands barely touching. The glow of the TV fading into the background. It was simple. It was warm. It was real. And yet, part of me waited for something to go wrong. Because when you've built a relationship online, when your entire love story began with voice chats and screen names, a small part of you is always braced for disconnection. One evening, I came home from a long shift. Jake was in the kitchen, trying to cook again. He had flour on his face and the smoke alarm had already gone off once. Still, he grinned when he saw me. "Dinner's almost ready," he said. I dropped my bag and wrapped my arms around him. "Please tell me that doesn't involve actual fire." He laughed. I followed the recipe this time. I kissed his cheek. "You said that last time. We had to eat cereal." Hey, cereal is a valid dinner choice. We ate slightly burned lasagna that night, sitting cross-legged on the rug. using mismatched forks because all the clean ones were still in the sink. Jake turned to me mid-bite and said, "I want to take you somewhere." I blinked. "Like now?" "No, next weekend. There's this place about an hour out. Quiet lake, little cabins." I thought, maybe we could get away for a bit. Just you and me. My heart stuttered. He was still holding the fork, still covered in flour, but his eyes were so sincere. "I'd love that," I said, and I meant it. That weekend we drove out of the city. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke. Our phones barely had signal. The cabin was small but cozy. One bed, one bathroom, no Wi-Fi, just the two of us, a stack of board games, and a view of the lake that looked like a painting. That night, we lay under a shared blanket, listening to wind rustle through the trees. Jake turned to me. "Do you ever wonder if this would have happened if I hadn't messaged you that night?" I smiled in the dark. "All the time. And I think we still would have found each other. Maybe in another game. Maybe another lifetime." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think you're the best thing I've ever accidentally stumbled into." I laughed. "That's your romantic line?" He pulled me closer. "It's the truth." I kissed him. And outside, the wind carried the sound of the lake gently brushing the shore like a heartbeat. Steady. Soft. Ours. When we got back from the lake, something shifted. It wasn't sudden. There was no fight. No dramatic silence. Just a subtle change in the air between us. Jake smiled the same. Held me the same. Said "I love you" like he always had. But I could feel something unspoken starting to take root. Maybe it was work. He picked up more hours, came home late, logged into meetings even on weekends. Maybe it was me. I had started my thesis and the stress was eating at my sleep. We still made time for each other. But sometimes it felt like we were more roommates than lovers. One night, we sat side by side, each on our laptops. I looked over and said, "Remember when we used to stay up all night talking about dragons and time loops?" He glanced at me, then smiled faintly. "Yeah, we were funnier back then." "Speak for yourself," I teased. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I stared at him, at the small crease between his brows, the way his fingers tapped the edge of the keyboard like they wanted to be anywhere else. And I thought, when did we stop playing? The next weekend, I suggested we take a break from screens. No phones, no laptops, just us. Jake raised an eyebrow. "You trying to torture me?" "Just a little," I grinned. We spent Saturday building a puzzle on the floor. He got frustrated halfway through and tried to make up fake pieces that didn't exist. I called him out. He denied everything. We ordered takeout, watched an old rom-com, made fun of the cheesy soundtrack, and fell asleep on the couch tangled up in each other. It felt like us again. Until Sunday night. He stood at the sink, washing the dishes slowly. I hugged him from behind. "Want to play something later?" He hesitated. "Actually, I've been thinking about uninstalling." I blinked. "The game?" He nodded. "I feel like we've outgrown it. Don't you?" I didn't answer right away. That game had been our beginning. Our first laugh. Our first night together. Our first, "I miss you." "You really want to delete it?" I asked quietly. Jake turned around and looked at me, really looked. "I want us to build something new." He reached for my hand. "We're more than where we started, Katie." I nodded slowly. "You're right. But can I at least take a screenshot of our characters before you do?" He smiled. "Of course. And maybe we can print it. Frame it. Hang it by the router." I burst out laughing. "You're such a nerd. Takes one to know one." That night, we sat together one last time in our guild base. Our characters stood side by side in the moonlight of that pixelated world. I took a screenshot. Then Jake hovered over the uninstall button. "You sure?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "But I'm keeping one thing from the game." "What?" He turned to me, eyes soft. "You." He clicked. The screen went black. We sat in silence, surrounded by the hum of the apartment. Outside, a car drove by. A dog barked. Jake leaned his head on my shoulder. "Thanks for logging in that night," he whispered. "Thanks for farming with me," I replied. And we both smiled. No longer just players, but partners. In love. In life. The week after we uninstalled the game, life went on. Jake still left coffee on the nightstand before I woke up. I still reminded him to eat when he got sucked into code. But something else began creeping in reality. The version of us that lived in the game, they didn't have to worry about bills, or long work hours, or dirty laundry piling up in the hallway. One Thursday night, I came home to find Jake asleep on the couch. TV on. Work laptop still open. Dinner untouched. I sat next to him and brushed the hair from his eyes. He looked peaceful, but also tired. Exhausted in that deep, silent way where even dreams feel heavy. I didn't wake him, just curled up beside him, listening to the steady sound of his breathing. Friday morning we argued. Over nothing big. I said something about him not replying to my text. He said I was being dramatic. I said I felt like I didn't matter sometimes. He said he didn't have time for this right now. Then there was silence. Not the kind filled with comfort. The kind that aches. Jake left for work without kissing me goodbye, and I cried in the kitchen while burning toast. That night, we both pretended things were fine. Ate dinner in awkward silence. Watched a movie neither of us remembered the plot of. Halfway through I turned to him. "Are we okay?" He paused the movie. "I don't know." The words hit like cold water. I swallowed hard. "Do you want space?" Jake looked at me, tired, conflicted. "No," he said. "I want to fix this. I just don't know how." Neither did I. But I knew one thing. "We talk," I said. "No more pretending. No more brushing it off. Even when it's messy. Even when it hurts." He nodded slowly. "I can do that." I reached for his hand. It was warm, still his, and I held on. Over the next few weeks, we worked at it. We argued more, but we also listened harder, apologized better, held each other longer after the tough nights. We learned that love wasn't just sharing snacks and game nights. It was showing up. On the bad days. On the boring days. On the days when you had nothing left to give, but still offered something anyway. One night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, Jake turned to me, foam still in his mouth, and said, "Let's move." I blinked. To where? Somewhere quieter. With better light. Maybe a dog. I spit out my toothpaste. "You want a dog now?" "Maybe. You said once you wanted a garden." I leaned against the sink. "You're serious?" He nodded. "I want to build something real with you, Katie. Not just a place. A home." And so we moved. To a small townhouse on the edge of town. With peeling paint and an overgrown yard. But also a porch swing. And enough sunlight for plants. We painted the walls together. Argued over furniture. Adopted a rescue dog and named him Machi. He barked at everything. Hated baths. Loved belly rubs. Jake complained, but secretly adored him. I caught him baby talking more than once. We made new routines. Built new rhythms. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Autumn came quickly. The leaves in our backyard turned gold and red. Machi discovered the joy of digging holes everywhere. Jake bought 3 different types of rakes before accepting he'd never win against the falling leaves. I started lighting candles in the evenings. He said they made the house smell like cookies. I told him that was the point. On weekends, we visited farmers' markets, drank cheap cider, argued about which pumpkins were cutest, and came home with more than we needed. It was a slow, ordinary kind of happiness. Not fireworks. Not fanfare. Just warmth. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. One night, I found Jake on the porch staring into the sky. I stepped out quietly, wrapped in a hoodie. Thinking deep thoughts? I asked, sitting beside him. He shook his head. Just thinking. I waited. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said, I got an offer. For a new job. Out of state. My heart dropped. How far? Seattle. That was across the country. I blinked. When? They want me to start next month. I looked down at my hands. Suddenly cold. Are you going? He didn't answer right away. Then softly, I don't want to leave you. But this job, it's your dream, isn't it? He looked at me. Yes. But you're more than any dream. My throat tightened. I stood and walked to the porch rail, taking a shaky breath. I won't stop you, I said. I won't be the reason you don't chase something you've worked so hard for. He joined me. What if we tried long distance again? I turned to face him. We barely survived it the first time, Jake. We were younger then, he said. Less solid. I searched his face. So much love. So much worry. I don't want to go backwards, I whispered. Then come with me. The words hit me like lightning. I blinked. Come with you. He nodded. I know it's fast. I know you've got your own plans. But I want us to keep writing this story. Together. I didn't answer that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories rushing through me like waves. First message. First call. First flight. First fight. First, I love you. And now this. The next morning I made pancakes. Jake sat at the table watching me, nervous. I set down 2 plates, poured coffee, sat across from him. Then I said, I'll go. His eyes widened. Really? But we take peaches, Machi. And every ugly mug in this cabinet. He laughed. Deal. And you do the packing. Obviously. And you kiss me right now or I'll change my mind. He was out of his chair before I finished the sentence. Moving was chaos. Boxes everywhere. Machi barked at the moving van. I cried twice over broken dishes. Jake got a parking ticket. But we landed. A little apartment in Seattle with creaky floors, noisy neighbors, and a view of a grocery store. And I loved it. Because he was there. Because it was ours. Seattle was louder than I expected. Rainy, yes, but also buzzing with movement. Trams. Tourists. Tech people everywhere. Always typing, always rushing. Jake loved it instantly. He dove into his new job like a fish back in water. Long hours. Meetings. Startup energy. He'd come home exhausted but glowing. I, on the other hand, felt lost. I didn't have school anymore. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't know anyone but him. The first few weeks I stayed home with Machi. Took long walks. Explored side streets. Wrote in a journal I'd forgotten I still had. But it wasn't enough. Jake noticed. One night, I sat at the table while he reheated leftovers. He glanced at me. You okay? I nodded. Just figuring things out. You miss it, don't you? Miss what? Back home. Your friends. Your routines. I shrugged. I miss having a purpose. He sat beside me. You still figuring out what you want to do? I hesitated. I've been thinking about teaching. Not full-time. Maybe tutoring. Or workshops. His eyes lit up. You'd be great at that. You think. I know. He reached for my hand. And I'll support whatever path you pick. My eyes stung a little. How did I ever meet this man again? Oh right. I let a video game boss straight into him. A month later, I got a part-time gig teaching creative writing at a community center. The first day I was terrified. But the moment I saw a girl in the back scribbling furiously in a notebook, I felt it. This was right. I came home buzzing. Jake listened while I told him every little detail, even what snacks the kids brought. He kissed my forehead. You've got that look. What look? The one that means you've found your thing. I smiled. Yeah, maybe I had. Our lives settled into a new rhythm. We explored the city on weekends, tested every coffee shop within walking distance, adopted a second cat named Maple. Peaches was unimpressed. We hung up our old gaming screenshot by the Wi-Fi router, just like Jake had promised. Sometimes we still stayed up late talking. Not about dragons or loot drops anymore, but about real things. About dreams. About what scared us. About where we saw ourselves in 5 years. One night Jake said, "Do you think we'll ever get married?" I blinked. Was that a proposal? No. I mean, not yet. I just think about it sometimes. I smiled. I think about it too. He relaxed. Cool. So, if I do propose, it won't be weird. As long as it's not at a gaming convention, I'm good. Dang. There goes my backup plan. The thing about love is, you don't always know when it's happening. Not the big kind. Not the forever kind. But sometimes, in the middle of a regular Tuesday, between folding laundry and arguing over who used the last of the oat milk, you catch yourself thinking, I'd do all of this forever if it means doing it with you. Fall turned to winter. Seattle draped itself in gray skies and raincoats. I started wearing Jake's hoodies more often than my own. Peaches refused to leave the bed. Maple knocked over every mug we owned. Machi ate part of our Christmas wreath. We hosted our first small holiday dinner, just 4 people. I cooked. Jake cleaned. The lasagna was better this time. No smoke alarm needed. Later that night, after everyone left and the dishes were piled in the sink, Jake handed me a blanket and said, "Sit. I'll do this." I curled up on the couch and watched him. He looked so domestic. So ordinary. But also so ours. I thought about everything we had built. About how it started with a message. About how easily it could have ended before it even began. And I felt grateful. Grateful for the missed sleep, the awkward calls, the years of wondering. Grateful that we chose to keep showing up. Even when things were hard, even when they weren't exciting anymore. Jake caught me staring. "What?" he asked, flicking soap suds at me. "Nothing," I said. "Just glad you're real." He smiled. "Same." The following spring, Jake's mom visited. I was terrified. We cleaned the apartment twice. Jake kept saying she's chill, but I didn't believe him. She arrived with a suitcase full of homemade snacks and a hug that felt like home. "I've heard so much about you," she said. "Oh God," I whispered. She laughed. "Over dinner." She told stories about Jake as a kid, how he used to cry when his computer crashed, how he once tried to build a robot out of cereal boxes. He groaned. "I can't believe you're telling her that." I leaned in. "Please continue." That night, after she went to bed, Jake wrapped his arms around me. "She likes you," he said. "I like her," I replied. He looked at me almost shy. "Think we could be like them someday? Messy and sweet?" He nodded. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think we're already on our way." A few weeks later, I found a tiny velvet box in Jake's sock drawer. I didn't open it. I didn't even touch it. But I smiled. Because now I knew what was coming. And I was ready. After I found the box, I waited. Every dinner, every weekend walk. Every coffee run, I wondered, will it happen now? But Jake didn't bring it up. No hint. No nervous stuttering. Just normal Jake. At first, I thought I imagined the whole thing. Maybe it wasn't a ring. Maybe it was cufflinks or earbuds in velvet packaging. But then one Saturday morning, he woke me up early. "Get dressed," he said. "Why?" No questions. I sat up groggily. "Am I going to need sunscreen or tissues?" He laughed. "Maybe both." We drove out of the city. Jake brought coffee. I brought road trip snacks. Machi whined from the back seat like he wanted to come. I'm still not sure if this is a hike or a surprise party, I said as the car turned off the main road. You'll see. 10 minutes later, we pulled up to a place I hadn't seen in years. A quiet lake, surrounded by pines. One little dock. 2 folding chairs already set up. My heart skipped. This is where? Jake nodded. You told me you'd come with me. Where it all changed. I stepped out of the car. The breeze was soft. The air smelled like spring. We walked down the gravel path, just like we had that weekend so long ago. Except this time he stopped halfway, turned toward me, and knelt. I covered my mouth. Katie, he said, voice slightly shaky. We've lived through loading screens, time zone differences, awkward calls, burnt dinners, and too many weird nicknames to count. I laughed, already crying. And I would do it all over again. Every message, every fight, every restart, because it led me to you. He opened the box. Inside, a simple, beautiful ring. Will you marry me? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said through tears. Yes. Yes, of course. He slipped the ring on my finger. It was perfect. We hugged so hard we nearly toppled over. Then he pulled me into a kiss that tasted like spring wind and forever. Somewhere behind us, a bird chirped loudly, like it was celebrating too. Later, we sat in the folding chairs by the lake. Jake reached for my hand again. You knew, didn't you? I grinned. I saw the box weeks ago. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted you to be ready. He looked at me, soft and full of wonder. I've been ready since you beat me to that dungeon boss. I raised an eyebrow. I was underleveled and undergeared. Still beat me, he muttered. We both laughed. We drove home in silence, hands intertwined on the center console. And I thought to myself, this isn't the end of a story. It's just the start of another level. We didn't rush into wedding plans. Jake proposed in spring. By summer, we still hadn't picked a date, or a venue, or even decided if we wanted cake or pie. But every morning, I woke up with the ring on my finger and thought, yeah, this is real. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes it wasn't. One afternoon, while reorganizing the kitchen again, I said, do we have to do a big wedding? Jake looked up from the floor, where he was trying to fit 4 pans into a 2-pan drawer. Nope. We could just do something small. Sure. Like 20 people? Perfect. No matching outfits. No doves. Definitely no choreographed dances. He grinned. I'll cancel the fire-breathing magician. I threw a dish towel at him. But he was serious. And so was I. We didn't want to impress anyone. We just wanted to get married. We set the date for October. Autumn. Our favorite season. We booked a small garden venue on the edge of the city. Enough room for friends, family, and a few confused ducks who wandered into the ceremony. We sent out digital invitations, printed menus ourselves, argued over fonts for 2 hours before deciding to just use Times New Roman. Simple. Unfussy. The week of the wedding, things got hectic. Machi ate part of a bridesmaid's shoe. Maple slept on my dress. Jake got food poisoning from a pre-wedding barbecue night with his friends. I stayed up late more than once, staring at spreadsheets and crying into ice cream. At one point, Jake found me sitting on the kitchen floor, wearing one slipper and a veil made of paper towels. He knelt beside me. Cold feet. I shook my head. Cold brain. Everything's spinning. I just want it to go well. I want it to feel like us. Jake took my hands. It will. He looked me in the eyes. Even if the flowers wilt, and the ducks poop on the aisle, and I say the wrong name, you better not. It'll still be our day, because I'll be looking at you. My heart melted. Again. I sighed. You're lucky you're cute. The day came. Cloudy skies. Cool air. Leaves scattered like confetti across the path. I stood behind a row of hedges holding a bouquet made of wildflowers. My hands trembled, but only a little. Then the music started. And I walked. There he was. Waiting. Gray suit. Slightly wrinkled. Shoes mismatched I didn't notice until later. Hair messy. But his smile? Like the sun had finally come out. When I reached him, he whispered, "You're late." I whispered back, "I'm worth the wait." And we both grinned like idiots. The ceremony was short. Jake cried first. I cried second. We read our vows off crumpled note cards. He said, "I'll never forget the first time I heard your voice through cheap headphones. And I'll never stop listening." I said, "You were never just pixels on a screen. You were my light in the dark. And now you're my home." We kissed to applause and duck quacks. And just like that, Katie and Jake, once two strangers in a game lobby, became husband and wife. Marriage didn't change everything overnight. We still argued about groceries, still forgot laundry in the washer, still had nights when one of us stayed up too late while the other fell asleep on the couch. But there was something different. Softer maybe, stronger, like we'd crossed a line together. Not into something perfect, but into something solid. One morning, Jake woke up before me, made coffee, scrambled eggs, burned toast. I stumbled into the kitchen in pajamas and found a note on the table. Wife status unlocked. New quest available. Eat slightly charred breakfast with your husband. I laughed so hard I nearly knocked over the coffee pot. He walked in, toothbrush still in his mouth. "You like the note?" "I'll allow it." "Barely." He gave me a sudsy thumbs up. We built a rhythm. Mornings were quiet. Afternoons busy. Evenings spent side by side. We didn't do anything extraordinary. No lavish trips. No huge promotions. Just life. Shared. Slow. Steady. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped looking for the next big thing. Because I was in it. This was the big thing. Of course, it wasn't always peaceful. We had bad days. Days where he came home tired and irritable. Days where I snapped at him without meaning to. We'd sit on opposite sides of the couch, arms crossed, hearts heavy. But we never let silence win for too long. One of us always reached out. Said, "I'm sorry." Said, "Talk to me." Said, "Come here." And every time we did. Because we had learned. Long before vows and rings that love isn't found in never fighting. It's found in coming back again and again. On our first anniversary, Jake planned a surprise. He blindfolded me, packed a bag, and drove for 2 hours. When we arrived, I heard birds, water, trees. "Okay," he said. "You can look." I pulled off the blindfold. We were back at the lake. Our lake. The one with the little dock and the folding chairs. He'd even brought them again, same chairs, slightly rustier. I laughed. Sentimental sap. He grinned. "You love it." I sat down and looked at the water. "Do you ever think about how close we came to never meeting?" I asked. "All the time." "And yet, eh?" He nodded. "Here we are." We sat in silence. Just like we had that day. But this time my hand had a ring. And his hand held mine. And behind us in the trunk, a leash lay waiting because we brought Machi too. That night, after we got home from the lake, Jake and I stayed up late on the living room floor, eating leftover cake and playing cards like teenagers. Peaches curled up in the laundry basket. Machi snored on his back with all 4 paws in the air. Maple tried and failed to catch a fly in the kitchen. Jake looked around at the chaos and said, "This is it, huh?" I glanced over. "What is?" "Life." I thought for a moment. Then I nodded. "Yeah. Messy floors. Cold cake. Card games at midnight. I wouldn't trade it." He leaned over and kissed my cheek. I'd uninstall the game all over again for this. I laughed. That's true love. Months passed. Seasons changed again. I took on more hours at the community center. Jake helped start a mentorship program at his company. We weren't always home at the same time. Some nights, one of us would eat dinner alone. But we always found our way back to each other. Even if it was just sharing a bowl of cereal in silence at 11:45 p.m. Even if it was folding laundry while watching reruns of a show we both knew by heart. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagram-worthy. But it was good. One Sunday morning I found Jake sitting at the table, sketching something on a napkin. I peeked over his shoulder. It was a tiny house. With a garden in the back. A tire swing. A little fence. "What's this?" "Just an idea," he said. "For the future?" He nodded. "A place that's ours. Really ours. Built from scratch." I smiled. "You even drew in the cat tower. Gotta keep Maple from eating the curtains. And the sandbox? For Machi. And maybe other tiny monsters one day." I looked up at him. "Jake." "Yeah? Are you thinking about kids?" He paused. "A little." "Are you?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know yet. But maybe someday." He reached for my hand. "No pressure. Ever." "I know." And I did. Because even when we weren't sure of what came next, we were always sure of each other. That night, I wrote in my journal. A habit I hadn't picked up in months. We never had a grand story. We had loading screens, midnight calls, inside jokes, late-night snacks, and burned dinners. But somehow we built something that feels like forever. And that was enough. Maybe more than enough. A few weeks later, I missed a period. At first, I brushed it off. Stress. Sleep. Life. It happens. Then I missed another. And another. I took a test at 6:42 a.m., barefoot in the bathroom. Too nervous to breathe. Positive. I stared at the word like it wasn't real. Like maybe if I blinked enough, it would say something else. But it didn't. Jake was still asleep. His arm thrown over the blanket, mouth slightly open, completely unaware that our lives were about to change. I sat beside him and whispered, "Hey, wake up." He grumbled something unintelligible. I shook his shoulder gently. He blinked at me. "Everything okay?" I held up the test. He stared, then blinked again. "Wait, really?" I nodded, tears in my eyes, hands shaking. He sat up, completely awake now, took the test from my hand, held it like it was made of glass. Then he looked at me. Are you okay?" "I think so." "Are you?" He didn't answer. Just pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. We sat there like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, hearts racing, minds spinning. Eventually he pulled back and whispered, "I'm scared." "Me too." "But I'm happy." "Me too." And that was all we needed. The next few months were a blur. Doctor visits, books about pregnancy, Pinterest boards I barely looked at twice, strange cravings and terrible sleep. Jake was a rock. He rubbed my back when I got sick, built a crib we didn't need yet, talked to my belly like it was already listening. One night, he looked up from a baby name book and said, "We should name them after a character." "From what?" "Our game." I laughed. "Absolutely not. I'm not naming my child Blaze Knight 99. Okay. But hear me out. What about Luna?" I paused. "That's actually kind of pretty." Jake looked smug. "Don't get cocky." When I was 6 months along, we had our first real panic. I slipped in the kitchen. It wasn't bad, just a scare. But the silence that followed in the ER was deafening. Jake didn't let go of my hand once. His leg bounced. His lips moved like he was praying to something, anything. When the doctor finally smiled and said, "Everything looks fine," Jake let out a breath I didn't know he'd been holding. That night in bed, he held me tighter than ever. "Promise me something," he whispered. "Anything. No matter what happens. We keep choosing each other." I nodded. I promise. Because that's what love really is. Not grand gestures. Not perfect days. Not knowing all the answers. It's a promise. Whispered in kitchens. Held together in waiting rooms. Written in text messages at 3 a.m. Lived out in 1,000 tiny choices. Every single day. The third trimester was everything. Wonderful. Terrifying. Exhausting. Beautiful. Full of swollen ankles, tiny kicks. And moments when I couldn't tell if I was about to cry or laugh. Jake was all in. He built furniture. Read every baby article he could find. Signed us up for parenting classes where he took too many notes and asked too many questions. One of the instructors called him the most prepared dad she'd ever seen. He blushed so hard I thought he might combust. At home, he talked to my belly like it was already a person. Hey, tiny roommate. You better not keep your mom up all night. That's my job. I rolled my eyes. You haven't done that since year 1. He grinned. Still got it though. We had a list of names by month 8. Not finalized, but close. We still hadn't agreed on wall colors, or stroller types, or which brand of baby wipes was the superior one. But we were a team. A chaotic, snack-fueled, mildly anxious team. One night, lying in bed with his hand on my belly, Jake whispered, "Do you think we'll be good parents?" I turned to him. "I think we'll mess up." "Great start," he muttered. "But," I continued, "we'll apologize when we do. We'll grow with them. And they'll know they're loved." He stared at me for a long time, then said softly, "You always know how to answer things." "Not always," I admitted. "But I know this. We're going to love them more than anything. Even more than peaches?" "Okay, don't be ridiculous." The final weeks felt like waiting at the edge of a cliff. Excited. Nervous. Sometimes peaceful. Sometimes not. Then at 3:47 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday, it started. Not a dramatic movie scene. No water breaking in the grocery store. Just a slow, deep ache. Then another. And another. I woke Jake. "Hey, I think it's time." He sat up in 0.3 seconds flat. Grabbed the overnight bag. Put his shirt on backward. Almost tripped over the dog. It would have been hilarious if I wasn't in labor. The hospital was a blur of lights, forms, and contractions that felt like my entire body was trying to turn itself inside out. Jake never left my side. Not once. He held my hand when I screamed. Whispered jokes when I thought I couldn't take it anymore. Cried when I cried. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, a cry. Tiny. New. The sound of a beginning. They placed her on my chest. Warm. Wiggly. Perfect. Jake was speechless. Eyes wide. Face soaked. He started, then stopped. I smiled, exhausted. I know. He kissed both of us, my forehead, then hers. "Hi, baby girl," he whispered. "I'm your dad. I promise I'll never stop trying to get this right." We named her Luna. Not after a video game, but after the way her face looked in that moment. Soft, glowing, full of quiet magic. Bringing Luna home felt like leveling up in a game where no one gives you a tutorial. Everything was new. Everything was loud. Everything smelled like baby wipes formula. And the faint panic of 2 first-time parents. Jake held her like she was made of glass. I cried because I couldn't get her to burp. We high-fived over successfully changing a diaper at 3 a.m. We were tired. So tired. Like could fall asleep standing up tired. Stared at the same sippy cup for 20 minutes tired. But every time Luna yawned, every time she curled her tiny fingers around one of ours, it was worth it. Underscore 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 The days blurred together. Mornings came too early. Nights lasted forever. Jake learned how to swaddle like a pro. I became a master at bouncing while brushing my teeth. Sometimes we snapped at each other over nothing. Did you wash the bottle? I thought you were going to. I said I was warming the milk, not ugh, never mind. But the moment Luna cooed, we melted. We were still us. Just sleep-deprived, milk-stained, and completely in love with a 7-pound human tornado. One night, Luna wouldn't stop crying. Nothing worked. Not bouncing. Not singing. Not that weird YouTube video with ocean sounds and whale noises. I was at my limit. Then Jake walked in, took her gently, and started humming something familiar. I blinked. Is that the theme music from our old game? He smiled. She always quiets down when I play it on piano. I stared. You're raising her to be a little gamer. He shrugged. Better than raising her to scream at 2 a.m. Luna yawned. And just like that, she drifted off. We didn't have everything figured out. We still Googled everything. We still worried too much. We still argued about which onesie was cuter. But every night, when Luna finally slept, and we collapsed onto the couch, Jake would turn to me and say, "We did it." And I'd say, "For today." Then we'd both smile. Because that's how we survived. One day at a time. One tiny victory after another. Like a raid party grinding XP. Only this time, the final boss was sleep regression. Sometimes I caught Jake just staring at Luna. Eyes soft. Like he still couldn't believe she was real. "You okay?" I'd ask. He'd nod. Then whisper, "She's got your eyes." Life changed. In ways we couldn't plan for. In ways we couldn't predict. But also in ways that made the world feel wider. And deeper. And somehow more ours than ever before. By the time Luna turned 6 months old, we had learned a few things. 1. Sleep was a currency, and we were always broke. 2. Silence was suspicious. 3. Love could exist in the space between two exhausted people passing each other a bottle at 4 a.m. Somewhere in the middle of diaper changes and growth spurts. Jake and I started to find our rhythm again. Not the kind we had before Luna, but something new. A version of us that still flirted, just with one eye open. That still held hands while pushing a stroller. That still said, "I love you," right after muttering, "Can you please grab more wipes?" I went back to teaching part-time. Nervous. Guilty. Relieved. Jake encouraged me. "You're not abandoning her," he said. "You're showing her what it looks like to chase something you love." I cried in the car after my first day back. Then again when I walked in the door and Luna giggled just because she saw me. That night, Jake cooked spaghetti. I grated papers. Luna babbled at her toes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was good. We learned to carve out time for each other again. Date nights weren't candlelit dinners. Sometimes they were just 30 minutes of Mario Kart after Luna went to bed. Jake still cheated on Rainbow Road. I still yelled about it. But we laughed. We kissed in the kitchen again. Even if one of us was holding a bottle or wearing socks that didn't match. We reminded ourselves that we were more than co-parents. We were still partners. Still us. One Friday, Jake surprised me. He picked me up after work and said, "Babysitter's at home. You have 2 hours." I blinked. What? No questions. Just come. He drove us to a tiny cafe tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat. There were string lights. Old songs playing softly. A slice of cake already waiting at our table. We sat down. He handed me a fork and said, "We don't have to talk about Luna tonight." I smiled. "I kind of want to." He laughed. "Me too." So we did. But we also talked about books. And old game lore. And how he still wanted to build a backyard treehouse someday. We held hands across the table. And for 2 hours we remembered how it all began. Not with bottles or burp cloths. But with late-night conversations, bad jokes, and a digital sword fight under pixelated stars. Back home, Luna was asleep. Machi barked once in his sleep. Maple had knocked a plant off the windowsill. We stepped over the mess together. And Jake said, "We're doing okay, right?" I looked around at our imperfect, noisy, beautiful life, and nodded. "We really are." Luna turned one on a bright afternoon in late spring. We threw a tiny party in the backyard. Just a few close friends, neighbors, and enough cupcakes to feed a small army. Jake decorated the fence with paper stars. I made a slideshow of Luna's first year. The sleepy smiles, the drool-covered onesies, the epic messes during mealtime. We watched it on a makeshift projector screen while Luna crawled across the grass, oblivious to all the attention. "She has no idea this is for her," Jake whispered. "She will," I said. "Someday." He looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded. But I was emotional in that quiet way. The kind that creeps up on you when you realize how much can change in a single year. 12 months ago, I was terrified. Now I was, still sometimes terrified. But also amazed. Grateful. Changed. After everyone left and Luna was down for the night, we sat on the porch swing with mugs of tea. Jake scrolled through the photos on his phone. "You know," he said, "we should print some of these. We always say that. This time I mean it." He paused on a photo of the three of us. Me holding Luna, Jake grinning with frosting on his cheek, all of us mid-laugh. "This one," he said. "This is the one I want framed." I leaned on his shoulder. "Me too." Later that week, I found an old screenshot from our game days. It was our characters standing side by side in matching armor, back when we barely knew each other's real names. I showed it to Jake. He laughed. "Wow, look at our gear. We thought we were so cool." We were cool. I had no idea back then that you'd be my wife someday. You barely knew I was a girl. "Hey, I suspected." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" He grinned. "No, not even a little." We stared at the screen for a while. Then I whispered, "If you could go back, start over, would you still send me that first message?" Jake didn't hesitate. In a heartbeat. Some nights, I lay awake after everyone's asleep. I listen to Luna breathing through the monitor. Feel Jake's hand brush mine under the blanket. Watch the moonlight touch the walls of the life we built. And I think about how far we've come. From lonely game nights to lullabies. From digital avatars to grocery runs and preschool signups. We weren't perfect. We made mistakes. But we never stopped showing up. And that, I realized, is what makes a love story last. Not magic. Not fate. Just two people choosing each other again and again. Even when it's hard. Even when it's quiet. Even when it's 2:13 a.m. and the baby's crying again. Years passed, not all at once but slowly. Like falling asleep in the passenger seat and waking up somewhere new. Luna grew. She learned to walk, then run, then ask 1,000 questions a day. Jake started graying at the temples. I got into the habit of talking to myself while cleaning. Machi slowed down. Peaches preferred sunbeams over chaos. Maple still knocked things over for sport. Our house was never quiet. And I never wanted it to be. One rainy afternoon, while Luna was at a play date, Jake found an old box in the closet. Inside were photo albums, old notebooks, and a USB drive labeled Day 1. He plugged it into his laptop. Up popped our first messages, chat logs from the game. The clumsy hellos. The awkward questions. The moment he sent me a virtual rose and I replied with, "Is this a bribe for better loot?" Jake laughed. "You roasted me immediately." I leaned over his shoulder. "And you loved it." He pulled me onto his lap. "You were the first person who ever made logging in feel like coming home." I kissed his cheek. "And you were the first person who made me feel seen. Even without a camera." We scrolled through the logs in silence for a while. Then he said, "If we ever have to tell Luna how we met." "What do we say?" "The truth." "You sure?" "I mean, your mom trolled me in a dungeon once isn't very romantic." "It's exactly romantic." We smiled. That night, we lay in bed, Luna asleep. Cats curled at our feet. Jake whispered, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we never met in that game?" "Sometimes," I said. "But then I remember, if the world gave me another life, another chance, another username, I'd still find my way to you." He squeezed my hand, and I'd still send that first message. Outside, the rain fell like soft applause. Not for a grand ending, but for everything we built in between.
You didn't just listen, you lived the story. If it touched your heart, hit subscribe and join Emma Audiobook. Because real emotions are just getting started.